Welcome to the People Behind Property podcast, where we talk to people behind the scenes, changing the industry, doing different things at different times, and it's great to be here again today. Our guest today is seen the industry from every single angle. He's an agent, been a business owner, he's a startup founder, corporate executive as well, financial review as well. He's built a business from scratch, scaled it, and successfully exited, and then stepped into one of the largest property platforms in the country. Now he's focused on solving one of the biggest problems and gaps in the industry, transparency, empowerment for buyers, and has founded FOUNDIT, which we'll talk a lot about as well. Please welcome me and joining Angus Ferguson, mate.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, mate, thanks for being here. And I was really excited to get you on. And,
Likewise.
I've known you a long time
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. I think you were from Wilson Pride days when I was trying to sell advertising to Tony, and that's when I first met you.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
That would have been at Balford Street in St Kilda, Pride Real Estate.
Yep.
Back in 2016, 15.
You would have been about, what, 21 or something?
21, trying to sell real estate.
I know. I mean, if you look, there's so much to talk about, but did you ever think, how did you get here? Like, how the hell did you go from that? Because most people, they'll stay an agent or they might get the opportunity to be a shareholder in an office. Did you ever think you were going to get here? Were you that dogged about wanting to get where you are today?
I think my background was I went and I was fortunate enough to go play soccer over in the US for a couple of years and quickly realised that I wasn't good enough to play professionally.
Yeah.
But what I did realise is that I had a pretty strong work ethic, and that was kind of my superpower.
Yep.
When I came back from the US, I'd always loved property. Family's been involved in property for a very long time. My pop, had a construction business. My mum's an architect, interior designer. It's kind of in our blood, and we're always pretty curious about property.
Kind of growing up around it.
And then tech was like something that I enjoyed, but I don't necessarily think that it was, a profession that I thought I'd end up in. But kind of the origin story of how I ended up in tech was I was running a real estate agency in Paran with a guy named Charlie Clemens, who you know as well.
Yep.
And I had no idea how to run a business at that time.
You're young. How old are you?
Like 22, 23. Have a meeting with the accountant once a month. They tell us about the P&L. I'd have no idea what they're actually talking about and all that stuff. And just was really curious about why we do things the way we're doing them, and would often just be like, there's got to be a better way on everything. As a young agent, you're kind of always trying to find shortcuts in a lot of cases. And with that, figured out at that time that there was a gap in the market, which was the way in which you had to report auction results was really antiquated and took a lot of time.
Yeah. And we've got some funny stories about that, which we might go through
in
a minute.
do.
But let's go back further. So you're from Echuca.
From Echuca originally, grew up there.
What was that experience like?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really cool place to grow up, where it's a really safe place. There's everyone that lives in your street, which is good and bad when you're a teenage kid, as you know. And then I ended up going down to Caulfield Grammar and went to boarding school with just a bunch of other country kids at the time, and that was a really great fun
good time.
too.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah. So you went and did an MBA as well?
No. I went to uni in the US, did a couple of years there. I never completed a degree.
Which that was tied in with what you're doing with sport.
Yeah, I was studying business and real estate there, but I never finished the course.
But you're mainly doing soccer. That was the main thing.
Yeah, soccer, and then studying in between soccer. It's probably the best way to think about it.
So did you have some kind of scholarship where they kind of pay some of your fees and stuff?
We did. We were fortunate where it was at a game going back when I was like 17, and there was a scout there from the US who said, hey, would you like to come and do an interview to potentially go to college in the US? And went through that process as a 3-hour interview, and then managed to get a place where they got a scholarship and kind of brought you over and housed you and looked after you. And it was a great experience. It was, you go over, I was in Mississippi of all places.
Yeah. I think you described it as almost being like an MBA at some point, what you were doing over there.
I think that the startup land was almost like being in an MBA.
Yeah.
When I went to Domain I was really, really fortunate after we sold the business, which we'll come back to learn from some great people, most of which had an MBA. As a lot of them were.
That's after RTA at this point.
It was. But definitely Dan Portelli and I, we weren't on the fly. So a lot of what we were doing is you kind of learning through failing.
How'd you meet Dan in the first instance?
Well, it's a good story in itself where So there was a property developer who ended up becoming one of our first investors, which was Nick Kremer Constructions,
Yep.
and Projects.
Yep.
He had a site in Paran, 110 apartments called Links. He gave me 10 apartments to sell, and Collier's had the majority of the listing.
Yep.
I sold the 10 and then miraculously found another 10 for me to sell. I ended up selling about 30 or 40 in there. And Dan Portelli was working there as a project manager at the time. And so Dan
what they do with Colliers, they say, that's not working, we'll stick with you now.
Yeah, they just gave listings to me. I was just a young and hungry agent. Be there at 10 o'clock at night with a torch on site with people, showing them some of the apartments.
Yeah.
And that was, but I met Dan through that.
Yeah.
And then funnily enough, I called Dan to give him an offer on one of the apartments. And he's like, mate, I'm not working there anymore. I've actually gone into mobile tech. I was like, well, I've got an idea. I'd love to run it by you. And he's like, absolutely, come and see me.
Yeah.
And we stayed in touch, but I didn't mention the idea again. 12 months later, I called him, like, mate, let's have a coffee. I want to talk to you about this idea. And so we met at Elwood at the Turtle Cafe.
Yeah.
Talked him through the construct of the market.
2014 or something.
Yeah, back in 2016, that would have been, is when we started, so 2015 probably. And I showed Dan some really, really bad designs that I've basically done with crayons, basically.
Yeah.
And said, this is the concept that I want to go and build, and I think this is a real problem. And he's seen it too, and he's like, look, if we do a deal, we go 50-50 today, I'll quit my job tomorrow. And he did. And he got to work building the first version of it, and I stayed as an agent for the first 6 to 12 months.
So you were Wilson.
So we were still, we were still like trialing it to make sure, put it into market, does it work? No, bring it out. And keep reiterating, iterating, I should say, from there.
Yep.
And then we ended up scaling that business up within 3.5 years, got it to 10% of all transactions in Australia. And we went like all in on it, both of us. We sold our cars. Ended up our first purchase after we raised a little bit of money was we actually leased a Fiat 500 together that we would.
I think I've seen that car.
Yeah, you would have. We've got a lot of speeding tickets and parking tickets in that one, and we would race around. And basically, what we did is we onboarded about 40% of all transactions in Victoria, about 10% of all transactions.
Yeah, you were very focused on Victoria, because you have to start somewhere, don't you?
Yeah, and what we realised with tech or any business in general is stay really close to your customer.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, a lot of times with tech companies, they'll often raise money, introduce people, and they'll kind of lose that frontline connection with the customer. And the customer actually gives you the best product ideas in most cases. Like in talking with you guys when you're at Noel Jones at the time and different people, like, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? How's this going to work from a process perspective? And how you tie it back together. And it's kind of rewarding when you can walk away from a conversation with you, come back a month later and be like, that conversation we had about that gap that you've seen, here's the solution for it. Yeah,
it was a funny time because, when REA first came out and everyone was like, oh, no, that's not going to work,
Yeah.
And it was kind of felt similar with RTA because we're, just trying to get some adoption out of an agent. So, no, that's not going to work, and you're trying to hold people's hands through it and all the rest of it. So, but, you got there, and it was, for you guys, was it the data play? Was that the biggest? Was that the big
so
piece?
That's where, like any business, like where you start off and where you end up are two very different places. And the initial idea was two things. One, the way in which the data moves through the industry is really antiquated, all these phone calls, text messages flying around. Simply, what does that actually mean is we had to call 4 data houses as an agent to report our auction results, CoreLogic, property data, REA and domain. And that's where we started. Where we ended up was the bigger impact that we had with that business was end-to-end workflow, which was we went into some of the agencies and they're like, hey, you guys are pretty good at building tech and real estate, what else can you build us? And we sat down with you and with a bunch of other agents and we're like, give us all your paperwork and let's understand where we can fit in.
Yeah.
And what we uncovered is that the two biggest catalysts for workflow is when you sign an agreement and when you sign a contract, because that's what the office is waiting to come and finish or close off or kick off the listing.
I mean, remember how many you'd have to do? You'd have 3 copies.
Yeah.
It would take you a half an hour to get that done at an auction or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So, that was a massive problem that you solved.
Yeah, and so that was really interesting and a lot of fun. And problem solving and working through how to actually build it. So to answer your question, where we ended up, what was the core value proposition was compliance and efficiency for agents.
Yep.
And again, we were like 20, I was 24, I think Dan was 26, 27, and we're just running around like trying to do everything. And agents, of course, be like, hey, mate, thanks for making
Traveling
it more
salesman,
efficient.
mate, really.
Yeah, basically living out of the Fiat.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, hey, thanks for making me way more efficient. And we're like, yeah, no worries. And then one day we're like, we should actually go see what that means.
Yeah.
And so we got a stopwatch and went into agencies and timed them from start to finish and actually figured out that we got rid of about 3 hours and 50 minutes of admin out of an office.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was impactful.
That's what you want. That's the type of measurement that gets customers, isn't it?
Yeah, and then after that, we stepped into Domain, came a knocking. I actually got introduced to Jason Pellegrino from the Nelson Alexander guys at the time, and they gave us a call and said, hey, we'd like to have a look at investing in you. And we were young enough and stupid enough to say no, but you can buy us. And 6 months later, that turned into an acquisition conversation, which we were fortunate that they bought that business from us. Yep. And we stayed on.
What did that feel like? Like that's a moment, isn't it? Like you've done all this work, you're in the Fiat, you're driving around all over Victoria trying to get deals done. And then all of a sudden there's this moment where they're offering you this deal, which is substantial. What was that like?
It was, like when you're going through startup land, you talk about it and you're like, what it's going to feel like if we sell this business.
Because you're in it, you're so close to it. There's this party that thinks we're so close to it, it doesn't feel possible.
And we thought when we would sell it, you'd be in a boardroom sitting around signing paperwork. That wasn't what it was. It was 12:30 at night in our office and startup, just Dan and I on our own, calling our investors to get them to sign paperwork, to then completed the deal at like midnight, and it's just Dan and I sitting together. Which is like, we're like, where's the balloons? Where's the... And, we just feel...
It's kind of messy, isn't it? Like just getting all these pieces lined up and...
Yeah, well, funnily enough, one of the things that we had to do is the negotiations is pretty full on when you get into it. It's like 6 months of pretty full on negotiations to get through it. And throughout that process... Sometimes you feel like the deal's about to fall over. Yeah. Sometimes you're walking away from the table on a deal point. They might be at certain points of that conversation. And we actually ended up having to borrow money from Domain, which Jason was good enough to do and and was confident that we would get there on a deal. So we borrowed $500,000 from them to keep funding the business.
How cool.
During the stage we were still negotiating with them as well, which was a interesting conversation to have in the middle of trying to negotiate on a number.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously Jason and John Fung and these Google guys, what did you learn from those guys? Were they kind of became mentors for you guys along that journey?
Yeah, they did. Like I was really lucky that at the end of the earnout, Jason P sat me down and said, look, I'd like you to stay. You're 29, you're probably going to go and do it again. But why don't you stay here and I'll teach you how to run a much bigger business. And so I've seen that as a real opportunity. There's some really smart people inside of that business, and, as you know. Yeah. And so I was fortunate that got to work closely with Jason, got to work closely with people like John Fung and very, very different operators thinking on a very much bigger level. And
I had limited exposure to John, but every time I did, it was just another level of thinking that,
at the beginning, sometimes it's a little bit jarring because the way I would think about something from a startup perspective versus John, who's got a Stanford MBA, who's got a framework. You're trying to figure out and you find these really interesting ways to rethink about a problem, to rethink about an opportunity, to rethink about where you're going to put your effort inside of your business from a bit more of a scientific perspective as opposed to a gut feel as well. Things like what is retention, growth and revenue look like from a score of 1 to 5, and does it average out at a 12 out of 15 or is it a 5 out of 15? Small things like that can kind of sense check you. And so I was fortunate that I ended up stepping into an exec role there, running a much bigger team and a much bigger revenue P&L, which is, as you know, it's very different when you go from a team that's $1 million a year to tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars. If you as a leader don't evolve and change the way you're behaving, if you're trying to do the same thing you did $1 million, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I remember we were at Domain for a while, and you had that article in Fin Review, and I thought, well, that's arriving. That's cool.
Yeah, that was a cool experience.
Yeah. What was that like?
Well, that came about because John put me up to that. It was AFR Young Exec of the Year, and it was a day where you came in. There's actors that come in who actually pretend to be a disgruntled customer, a disgruntled employee, and a few others. And then what happens is there's people actually watching everything you're doing. And they're watching what you do, but also what you don't do and what you do outside of what's coming at you.
Right.
Thinking about how proactive are you about thinking about other things that are going on inside of the organisation, because the whole premise of it is you're actually pretending to be a president of a global business that's doing billions in revenue and losing money. And by the end of the day, you've got to figure out how and why you got to turn it around.
So they're building this piece around what they see you do in that moment.
They're scoring everything you do.
So a bit nerve-wracking?
Yeah, it was like, I remember John called me after. He's like, how'd you go? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, that was just an absolute whirlwind of a day. But at the end of it, it was fortunate that we...
Pretty cool way to do it, though. I think just because they don't want you talking. They want real.
Yeah. Like, you can't hide in that kind of situation. Yeah. And what we got out of it as like the 5 or 6 finalists of it was you get a 10-page report that tells you all your strengths and weaknesses and your blind spots. And one of the things I learnt is generally as you grow as a leader inside of your business is your greatest strength becomes your greatest weakness. And what I mean by that is you often end up in a position where you always in a spot of chaos, you go back to what your safe place is that you know how to do really well. And generally that's not where you should be anymore, which was a really good learning for me.
Yeah, so good. I want to move on to your current project in a minute.
Yep.
What are your thoughts now? I mean, obviously RTA's there. We know there's a potential sale at the moment, and we've met with the lovely people at Domain, and they've got the whole team now for outboarding stuff, and they're still very committed to a product. But I mean, have you just kind of moved on? Like you're just on to your next thing, and what they do is what they do.
Yeah, I think we still care about the business and the people that are there.
Yeah.
Like there's still people that are there that have, they started at RTA when it was just a startup.
Yeah.
As well, which was actually the fun. And
in fact, shout out to our mate Michael Quillen. He's just bloody great job for us.
Mickey Q.
Yeah, he's very supportive. He's been good. So,
and he's like very passionate about training and developing and making sure people understand how to use the system.
And also Brad Morgan, who's been
Brad left though, so we'll forget about him. But I think not particularly. I mean, people have asked us, would we look at buying it back? No, I think that you kind of
doesn't strike me as the type of dynamic what you're doing. I think you keep moving, don't you?
Yeah, we try and go on to the next project and try and come into the next challenge.
Yeah, definitely.
But we'll see. We'll see who buys it.
Yeah.
See who it ends up. Who's the next home for it?
That's it. So before we move on to FOUNDIT, so how far did you take your kind of soccer career back in your youth?
I think so. I managed to get a soccer scholarship or athletic scholarship to boarding house in Caulfield, which was awesome and a great experience. And like country kid coming into the city is pretty confronting when you're like 15, 16. It's a completely different world you're used to. And then went and was fortunate to play in the US for a couple of years. So played in the NCAA Division 2. Which was awesome. We were like traveling around every second week to like Texas, Arkansas, all the southern states. You're on a plane or a bus, like playing everywhere.
Different world.
Yeah.
So what are some of those attributes that you've carried forward? Because I reckon there would be some, because it builds who you are as a person.
Yeah, definitely. I think
and I think even go as far as to say being brought up in Echuca and that with your journey, it seems like you've got some pretty important attributes there that.
Yeah, I think growing up in a country town, you are very careful as to what you say and how you represent yourself, because everyone knows everyone, and you carry that forward, and that's very relevant for business. Obviously, real estate's a very small place, and you got to make sure you do the right thing by people, even if it means you don't make less money. That's definitely my mantra, anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
I'd rather.
But you are, everyone likes you. Like you're not throwing your weight around. you know how to read a room.
Yeah,
That's so important.
I think whether it's what soccer taught me is I love working in teams. I really like working with people and running in a common goal. Not less so like than working on my own. Like generally working with other co-founders, working with the team to actually deliver an outcome is really impactful.
Yeah.
And then the power of just hard work and making sure that realizing like what are you actually capable of and how hard can you push yourself, which you always end up surprising yourself.
Yeah, that's good. I think, you've been in the startup world. I think startups are nimble. They move fast. Do you think corporates, given how quickly there's innovation coming through, are they moving fast enough? Like, do you think this is where startups have the edge because they can move much, much faster?
I think everything's probably up for grabs again at the moment in terms of what AI can do.
Yeah.
There is vaporware to a component of it. Like not everyone can just pick it up and start using it and build a product tomorrow.
No.
But it does change the velocity at which you can do stuff. Definitely. Like we're seeing inside of our startup in terms of the guys that are using certain tools and how quickly they can turn stuff around versus would have taken them a couple of weeks to do it traditionally.
And cost a lot of money and time.
Yeah. And like, I think the thing that a lot of corporates face is, as you know from working in them as well, is they can get stuck in the mud. And even if they see the direction they want to turn in, it can take them a hell of a long time to turn the ship, to get it in the right direction, to get the steam, to get it going the right. Whereas a startup, you can change it. You can adopt if something comes out from Claude AI that's a better tool than ChatGPT, if as an example.
Yeah.
You move the systems, you can move the platforms, you can do it pretty quickly.
You can, that's right.
You don't need to consult 30 people in order to get it done.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting space to watch. I think like the way in which people shop for property could completely change. Like you look at the real estate portals, there's a list view in the paper, as we were talking about earlier. Now it's a list view online. What does that interaction start to evolve into? As consumers turn to wanting to use voice or use an AI agent for their whole day, for everything that's admin related.
Definitely.
How does that come into how you shop for property?
Yeah. I think that's a good lead. Let's talk about FOUNDIT because it's getting a lot of press at the moment. You've just put Nick Dowling onto the board.
Yes.
What problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah, so when I got to the end of my time at Domain, one of my remits was I would fly around and meet with a lot of real estate agents, and something that kept coming up was, geez, there's a lot of buyers agents getting out in this space, and there's kind of starting to pop up everywhere. And so we went out to look at some of the data, and I was like, this is pretty crazy. There's like hundreds of them entering the market a month via a few courses, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's interesting in itself, but why?
Yeah.
What's driving that? And you kind of sit back and you go, well, the way people bought property hasn't changed in decades in Australia. Like the thing I always liken it to is 25 years ago, you would walk through a home, do 2 5-minute inspections, and you look at a handful of comps and you make a decision, but it was a $60,000 property. You could repay it generally in 6.5 years.
Yep.
That same property today, the process is exactly the same.
Yeah.
Yet it's a multi-million-dollar decision in a lot of cases, or hundreds of thousands, and it's a 25-year mortgage commitment. It's like wildly different. And one of the guys who we were speaking to who's invested into our business, he said it really well. He was like, I've just realised that I did more DD on the fridge that I bought than the house, which is a wild concept to think that you would spend more time DDing your holiday, DDing the fridge you got to buy for $2,000 than the $1 million home that you've just purchased off 2 5-minute inspections.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like we've accepted that that's the way it is. And so that was interesting in itself when you like think about it in just a very simple manner. And then we looked at some of the stats, which is 70% of people get a pre-approval for a mortgage in Australia, don't actually buy.
Yeah.
The ones that do takes you an Aussie now 8 months to buy. And one of the banks did a property literacy test, and they actually found out that 61% of them failed this basic test, first-time buyers.
Yep.
Second home buyers failed 50% of the time with rudimentary questions like, what must I do between signing the contract and settling? A, get insurance on the property. Most people don't know.
Title insurance,
And you're like, well, that's like really concerning.
You haven't got a good conveyance if you're not getting that information, are you?
But the reality is, and like that's really interesting. And you kind of looked at it, and what we decided is the buyer agent is a big part of definitely what you should be doing as a buyer in this day. Like you look, if you go and buy shares at like a $250,000 block or whatever, you probably got to speak to your broker. You probably got to get some analyst reports. You probably got to sit there and listen to some information.
Yep.
Why don't we have the same equivalent when we're buying property in Australia? And so the key to what we're doing in the solution is, one, building a technology that enables the marketplace for seller agents and buyer agents to do deals together faster by integrating into their database and extracting off-market, pre-market, on-market listings so that agents can surface more opportunities and do more deals. But then buyer agents, what we found out is the best buyers agents don't necessarily have a leads problem. Like a Tommy Giorgio who's with us, leads is not his issue. His issue is finding the stock to buy the right property for the brief.
Yeah. So that's a big part of the problem that you're solving with this. With your platform.
So what we started to uncover is a really great buyer's agent sits down and refines the brief to really understand what a buyer wants. And they can get up to about 120 data points off a buyer. So it's not just bed, bath, car, price. It's things like must have a north-facing backyard, must have a pool, it's got to be a 5-minute walk to the favourite coffee shop, needs a ground floor bedroom because they're a downsizer. All that information we can actually capture inside of the brief, and then we surface opportunities from the sell-side agents and enrich it with their own data to make a match on that property. Instead of what happens at the moment that we see often is buyers agents are like spamming out all their buyer briefs, text message, phone calls, emails. Seller agents get them, they're in their inbox, but they can't really do anything with them that's insightful. But they're great. That's a really high intent signal that someone's ready to buy through you because they're about to part ways with 20 to 50K of a buyer agent's fee. That's a strong signal they're ready to buy. So what we're doing is organising the information and trying to package it in a way in the technology side. And then the other side of the business is to aim to build the largest buyers agency in Australia that houses the best of the best. And we give them research, technology, marketing. And so we went about and raised $3 million in pre-seed funding.
Well done, that's amazing.
Thank you. And set about to invest into those models, which is always a little bit of a terrifying experience because you spend all this time on this theory of this great deck and a business plan and a model that supports it. And then you get the money, which is a big responsibility of people's money that have decided to entrust you with it. And go and test that theory and see if it's actually going to work.
Which is what startup's all about. So me as a consumer, what's in it for me if I've engaged FOUNDIT? Like, what's in it for me?
Yeah, so what we give a consumer is, they get a trusted advisor. They get someone who is a local market expert who knows those streets and those people and the agents inside and out. They know the market better than just about anyone. So the way that fees, which we're fortunate to have Josh Fegan involved and partnering with our business, is 4 key criteria that they will definitely have is transactional knowledge, market knowledge, area knowledge, product knowledge. They tick the boxes on all those.
I think I've heard that.
Yeah, we've all probably heard that 1,000 times from Josh. And then
it's true though, isn't it?
It's so true. The fundamentals of real estate is, do you know those 4 key buckets?
That's right. And you know what? Not everyone does.
No, like even transactional knowledge, like you think about that. If you've got to know how to work an offer, you might not have to offer the most amount of money. It could be in settlement terms that actually gets you a better outcome and a better price, depending on what that vendor needs. They need 6 months to move or whatever else it might be. So it's those, like Tom Giorgio's example, that he works to uncover with his agent what is important to that vendor to get them the best result. And then the second part to that is they get access to a consumer research. So we've recruited in Kent Lardner, who's the co-founder of Pricefinder and then ran CoreLogic for a number of years as well. And he's
not a Pricefinder now?
No, he's with us now. So he's built out this amazing data lake that allows us to generate a 15-page report that gives the buyer confidence and clarity before they're ready to go and transact. And then we source the opportunities via the technology. So they're getting not only a great local market expert who can help them with the deal, but our buyers agents are getting access to the best tech, the best research to be able to serve the client.
Having the best tech if you're a buyer agent. And obviously it's making sure we spoke about this just quickly before, having the right buyer agents as well, because it's become a bit of not a free-for-all, but people from other vocations just, I want to be a buyer's agent. you know, and the best ones that I've seen are the ones that have been agents for a period of time that actually get it. But,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, they've got transactional knowledge.
Yeah.
They know how to work a deal.
yeah, that's right.
And they know some of the tricks that agents playing. And
Yeah.
like people, as we were talking about before, like a big part for us is not creating fear around seller agents.
Yeah.
Seller agents are great at what they do.
Yeah,
And they're there. It's the old Charlie Munger quote, show me the incentive, I'll show the outcome. They're there to get the best price and the best terms out of the buyer
that's right.
for their vendor, the person who pays them.
Yeah, and I think there's so much media out there at the moment with underquoting and obviously all these other things coming through with AML and all sort of stuff. So, you know, people do want services like that you're now offering that are led by technology.
Yeah.
People want data and information so they can make the right decision.
One of the things we've figured out is, and like even I'm guilty of this, is you can give me the most information, the best data possible, but I'm still going to sit there and second guess myself. And that's where having a trusted local market expert who can guide you through the data and say, here's the 15-page report. We know everything that we need to know about this property. We know how many owner-occupiers versus investors are in the street.
Yep.
We know the segmentation of the suburb, which are the key premium areas, which ones are slightly undervalued at the moment.
Yeah.
And give that to them and go, now these are the 3 most important things you need to know out of the whole 15-page report. Yeah. Let's go buy the property together.
Yeah, awesome.
Is with the power of bringing tech, data, and the human element together.
Mate, definitely. I think it's exciting. And, you know, congratulations on FOUNDIT as a co-founder, right?
Co-founder, yeah.
Who's your other
So my other co-founder is a mate of mine for 20 years.
Yeah. It's always a mate. It's always, you know,
Yeah, he's ex-investment banker for the last 20 years. And so he has a different perspective to me.
Yeah.
We share the same common goal and view, but he looked at it and he's like, this is crazy. Like, why are people trying to buy property with little to no information and no one on their side? He likens it to the investment banking world where if you're a big insto dealing with millions of dollars, you've got someone on the buy side and someone on the sell side to reach the best deal possible.
Yeah, definitely. We're excited to see the progress of FOUNDIT. Thanks for sharing some information about that. Got a few quick fire questions before we finish up.
Fire away, mate.
You know, your background, starting as a young lad in real estate and where you are today, you know, I think it's an incredible journey and people will be inspired to hear your story.
Thank you.
Mate, what's one of the best traits every successful founder needs?
I would say having the confidence in themselves to believe in the vision of what they've got. You will face adversity nearly every day and you'll tell people will tell you, that what you're doing is crazy and it won't work. You've got to believe in yourself and believe in what you're going after and believe in the biggest problem. I think to expand on it, I always come back to these 3 basic principles when I'm looking at investing into a startup or doing something. You've got to have these 3 things. You've got to solve a real problem for whatever segment you're going into. You need to be tech enabled or tech first. If you're going to do it and do it at scale, you need those things to get you there. And the third is you've got to have good unit economics on a standalone basis so that you can actually build a sustainable business model.
Yeah, and if you're quitting your job to work less as a startup, what would you say to that, mate?
You'll definitely get paid a lot less.
24/7.
You'll definitely get paid a lot less and you'll work 3 times the amount.
Yeah, exactly. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
From a real estate perspective, it would be from Tony Pride, which is always sell everyone else's real estate and never your own.
That's good advice. One thing you do differently if you started again, that's good advice.
Yeah, Tony's pretty good.
Yeah.
If I was starting again, I'd say the 3 principles. Understand the market, the problem that you're trying to solve. Make sure it's not marginal. Make sure it's a big enough shift. Use tech to get you there, leverage yourself for it, and make sure you got good, sound fundamentals on a business sense.
What does success look like for you now?
I think success looks like for me different to this from the last one to this one. I think last time it was like, let's hustle and make some money and build.
Because you're a family man as well, so you're juggling.
Yeah. I've got 2 young kids. I've got a 4-year-old next week and a 11-month-year-old as well. But for me, it's building something that's sustainable, that's a big business, to push myself to see how far we can take this one. I'm not necessarily wanting to sell it tomorrow, but we want to try and see how far we can push it.
I think you want something meaningful, which is what you were doing. So final question, what's something people wouldn't expect about you outside of business? You almost touched it there with family, but is there anything else that we wouldn't know about you outside of business?
Doing this stupid thing at the moment, which is we've implemented the FOUNDIT bingo card in FOUNDIT. So everyone has their own bingo card, which is just a nice way to try and do KPIs. So everyone's got 7 goals, I think it is.
And it's a bingo.
So you colour them in as you get through them. One's on content, one's on...
Is this like some kind of app or?
No, it's just a bingo card.
Oh, a card.
It's all...
literally a paper card.
Yeah. It was done up for the team. But in one of them is, which I stupidly did with a mate, Frank Grief, which is to run 6K a day every day for the whole year.
Oh, yeah? How's that going?
Well, if you miss a day, you got to do 12. If you miss 3 days, you got to do 18. So it just keeps compounding. I've copped it and had to do the other weekend. I had to run from Mount Martha to Sorrento. It took me about 28 Ks or something stupid.
To catch up?
And
then you still had to back it up with 6 the next day?
Yeah.
And it sets every day?
Resets every day. Yeah.
How long is this going to go for?
365 days, so we're halfway. Okay. Nearly halfway.
That's insane.
Good. Yeah, it's stupid.
Mate, Angus, we really appreciate your time today. That is a fantastic way to leave this. But, mate, what stands out is your ability to move across, different layers, your work ethic, your consistency, what you're doing with FOUNDIT. We're very excited to watch its progress, especially nationally, now with Nick Dowling on the board as well. I think it's really exciting. Thanks for being part of our podcast.
Mate, thank you.
And if you'd like to join or follow, like us if you'd like to. Thanks for coming on again, mate, and we'll look forward to...
Thanks so much for having me, mate.
Thank you.
Good to catch up.
Yeah, definitely.